All right. I am live, it says. So, well, hello, friends. Welcome back to SerenityOS office hours. And I forgot to put up the FAQ, so let me click that. As usual, I'm not completely confident that I can be seen or heard, so I'm just going to wait for somebody to confirm that. All right. I'm going to interpret this as, well, hello, Kling. Excellent, excellent. So, it's another Friday, and we're going to do what we always do and talk about SerenityOS. I am going to have to go a little bit shorter today because it's been a very busy week. If you've followed the channel, you know I've been putting out, I think, 5 videos or something in the last week, and I'm kind of tired from from making all the videos and focusing so much. So a little bit shorter, but nevertheless, no other deviation from the format. So what we always do is you ask the questions and then we talk about whatever you want to talk about, as long as it's SerenityOS related. And Omni here with the super chat. Thank you very much, Omni, asking what is the plan? Well, the plan is to create silly memes about plans to bait people to send super chats, of course. No, but thank you very much for the support. I really appreciate it. There is no plan, as I'm sure you know. Let's see. Hello, Linus. How's it going? By the way, since I have you all here, let me just go ahead and tell everybody to subscribe to Linus, because Linus has been making videos about hacking on JavaScript stuff. So definitely hashtag subscribe to Linus. Check out his videos. He posted one a day ago. I really enjoyed it, and I think you might as well. Okay, let's see. Lucas says, I just watched the new browser hacking episode, and right after that, office hours goes online. I'm finally getting my daily dose of SerenityOS. Yeah, it's well, it's been a lot of daily doses this week, that's for sure. James says, plans? We have goals. Yeah, I guess so. Or at least, I don't know if I have goals, but I have a direction. I think ultimately, structure and discipline is what I'm going to rely on to get where I want to go. But to each their own, you know? Everybody finds the way of working that works for them. Let's see. So Creative Philip says, I'm working on a C-Line plugin to enable autocomplete and syntax highlight for our custom files. IDL, IPC, and GML. Do you know where I can find a grammar file for a peg parser for IDL? I have no idea where to find that. Sorry. Dead Rubyroid says, are you streaming from SerenityOS? No, I am streaming from Ubuntu. SerenityOS does not yet support a number of technologies that are required to stream to YouTube, but eventually we'll get there, one step at a time. Let's see. Drunken Pud says, regarding Discord page, could you calculate the SVG image once, store it, then only recalculate on resize? I think currently it recalculates during painting, although I may be wrong. Right, so that's definitely something we're doing right now. We are repainting the entire SVG, the background SVG, on every paint. So if we open it up in Firefox, just to see the background. So this big background, vector graphic background here, right? It's all one big SVG, and one optimization we could do is to draw that into a big bitmap and then keep that around. It's definitely feasible. Our layout and rendering engine in libweb is not really set up to cache what a particular element looks like at the moment. We would probably need to come up with some sort of layer abstraction so that you can sort of subdivide the content into layers, and then each layer could have optionally a cached rendering of itself. But I think at the moment there's so many low-hanging fruit in the painting code anyway, because This SVG is not that complex, right? It's just a little bit of cartoony stuff. We should be able to render this. One major problem that we have, though, is that on Serenity, like actually, now that I resize it here, I noticed that the SVG resizes along with the window. We don't do that on Serenity. Like, we're drawing at the same size every time. But anyway, I'm sure that we have a lot of overdraw and things like that. And also our SVG layout code does not work correctly in many ways. It just paints correctly, but it doesn't actually lay out correctly, which means that we can't do sort of occlusion testing type optimization stuff. So we just need to work on the SVG code and improve it, I think. Anyway, let's see. But it's not a bad idea to render it. The compromise there is that you pay a memory cost for keeping that big image around. So Jepros says, how to start contributing to SerenityOS. So what I usually recommend to people is to build it and run it and then mess around on the system until you find something that bothers you or something that you think is missing or not quite right, and then try to figure out how to fix it yourself. It can be anything, and it doesn't matter where you start. And the beauty of this approach is that everybody starts in a different place. So we don't have everybody coming into like, oh, this is the beginner component, right? Instead, because everybody chases down their own itch, we have all the beginners spread across the system. And it's been working beautifully so far, at least. Samuel says, I think I'm starting to get the idea that there's no plan for SerenityOS. What, you're not going to ask about the plan this week, Samuel? Tobias. Oh, hi, Andreas. Long time no see me at office hours. Welcome back to office hours, Tobias, and congratulations on your recent academic success. I guess that's why you have time to hang out here now. It's good to have you back. Hello, Devashish. Kosova1 says, hi, Andreas, could you explain what FlyStrings are? Sure. So FlyString is a convenience class, and it's very similar to string with one additional thing. So we have AxString already. It's our basic user space string class. Very convenient. And then if you use a FlyString instead of a string, FlyString is an implementation of the flyweight pattern. So if you're not familiar, flyweight is essentially a design pattern which is meant to, the purpose of it is to have a single instance of something that is used many times, essentially. So if you have a string that occurs many times in the memory of your program, instead of having 1,000 copies of the string, you just have a single copy, and it's a flyweight copy of the string. And instead of everybody having a unique copy of the string, they all point to that same shared copy. And FlyString is a convenience class, just like string, that ensures that the string that you store inside of it is always deduplicated within the whole program. So that has a couple of benefits. The main one is, or I shouldn't say the main one, but two of the main ones are lower memory usage because you only have one instance of each string, and also comparing two strings, if they are both FlyString, is instant because all you have to do is compare the address of the string because of the guarantee that they're always deduplicated. If two strings are identical, they will point to the same place. And these are called unique strings in some places. Other people call them interned strings. I've also seen atomic or atom strings. It depends on what you want to call them in your code base. Here we call them FlyString because they are flyweight strings. Thomas Gar says, was late the last time? I wanted to ask this. Would you consider it 1, feasible, 2, meaningful, and 3, desired to port libGUI to other OSs like Linux, BSD, Windows? It's definitely feasible. Meaningful, it's up to the person doing the work. I don't decide what's meaningful to you any more than you decide what's meaningful to me. And desired is, once again, up to the person doing the work. I think as long, but in terms of like desired for the project, as long as it wouldn't be extremely obnoxiously intrusive, it would certainly be cool to have libGUI running on Linux, for example. But it's not work that I'm personally interested in doing. But if someone is interested and it can be done in such a way that it does not interfere greatly with development of Serenity itself, then yeah, because I think that sort of thing could lead to better abstractions in some cases, and it's just more exposure. So there are a lot of benefits to it. I do see the benefits, but I don't find the work personally meaningful or interesting, so I'm not going to do it. But if somebody desires it and finds it meaningful, then they are very welcome to give it a shot. Omni says, creating a memory manager feels like a chicken and egg problem. How does Serenity track used memory from kmalloc? So I did a couple of videos on kmalloc recently that you can find on the channel, where I talk kind of in depth about how kmalloc works and what are some of the design problems with it, and then we actually go through and improve the design a little bit. So that was, where was that? Around Christmas, I think? Oh, it was a while ago now, I guess. Here, 1 month ago. I would recommend checking that out. Let's start improving the SerenityOS kernel heap allocator. That video is full of information about how kmalloc works. Because your question is very, very general. It's not like there's one straightforward answer to how do we track used memory. It's a complex answer with multiple layers. Sam says, the SVG resize thing, I think, is because we don't support ViewBox, but I think Tobias is working on that. That is most likely correct. Yes, I think we parse the ViewBox, but we don't actually do anything with the ViewBox information. So that's also the reason that you see gigantic SVGs on some pages, because when embedding an SVG, somebody uses like a ViewBox to make it smaller. But because we just interpret the SVG verbatim, then we get this gigantic RSS icon here, for example, due to us ignoring the ViewBox stuff. But that is great if Tobias is working on that. Let's see. Japros says, can I build SerenityOS from source on macOS? I believe so. I haven't tried it myself, but I know many other people are doing it, so that should be a thing. Some super chats here from Yanis saying, laying back and relaxing. Netflix? No. Discord series? Yes. I'm really glad that people are enjoying the latest Discord video series. It's a blast to work on that stuff, and it's really fascinating. And before the Handmade conference in November last year, if you remember, I posted a video about how I had been working secretly on some stuff. This is sort of very similar to that, but instead now I'm just working in the open on something instead, which is what I should have been doing all along. And I think back last year when I was working on Twitter, then I don't know why. I guess I wanted to create some kind of a surprise for people, but now I'm smarter and I realize that it's much more fun to show the process, because that's ultimately what I'm all about and what the YouTube channel is all about. So it's silly for me to go and try to make secret things. So I'm glad that people are enjoying the series. I'm really enjoying making it. And thank you for the super chat, Yanis. And Andy also with the super chat saying, I'm wearing my, I don't know how to pronounce this, but wearing my happy face shirt today. Thanks for making awesome content, Andreas. Thank you for the super chat, Andy, and for representing the happy face team. I really appreciate the support. And then, okay, Philip also has a super chat saying, I'm super interested in getting libGUI running on macOS to eventually get the browser cross-platform for faster testing. Cowboy hat face. Well, Philip, I hope that you will find some time in your heart to spend on that, because I think you would have a lot of fun getting that working. And thank you very much for the super chat. I really appreciate that. And nice cowboy hat. Let me scroll back so I don't forget a bunch of stuff. Okay, so Ominous Liticus says, I built Serenity for the first time this week, now getting familiar with kernel code. Welcome to the project. I am really glad to have you. That is great. So here's an example of somebody choosing to start in the kernel, but you could also start anywhere else, right? But that's great. More eyes on the kernel is great. Let's see. Bai Dieng says, are you open to other systems languages such as Zig or Rust to be used for userland applications? And if so, what about the kernel? I'm not really open to using other languages just for the sake of using other languages. This is ultimately a C++ project right now. The benefits of bringing in another language would have to be so large in order to justify it. So if there's a really, really good reason to do it and we can make interoperability work, then yeah, that would be interesting. But if it's just because somebody wants to use another language, then no, that's not really interesting. Let's see. Mage D says, just wanted to say hi and thank you for the Discord series. These videos are so insightful and interesting to watch. Well, thank you for saying that. I'm really glad to hear it. I'm glad you enjoy them. Firefox 317 says, during the latest videos, you increased the RAM size of the QEMU VM, and it seems like it boots a lot faster. Did you also experience that? And if so, do you have an idea why it is faster? I don't know if that's true or not. That may be placebo. I don't see why having more RAM should make it faster. It should make it a little bit slower because we have to build a larger data structure to keep track of all the free memory. Because we don't really have a fallback mechanism other than purging. Like we don't swap, for example. So adding more RAM doesn't avoid swapping, it just avoids crashing. So I think that may be placebo, but at the same time, you never know with SerenityOS, right? There could be all kinds of things going on. So maybe it is faster for some reason, but I can't say that I have experienced, or I can't say I've noticed it personally. Debdut with the super chat, thank you so much. Debdut says, hi Andreas, I've been a silent follower for Serenity for like 2-3 years now. Decided to finally not be silent anymore. Just love the project. Thank you so much, Debdut. I really appreciate that. And it's so fun when people who have been lurking for a long time decide to actually like reveal themselves. I think whenever I go to this page and I see just how many people are on our Discord server, for example, it's just bananas. And there are so many people lurking that we haven't even gotten to know yet. So I'm really looking forward to getting to know more people as they eventually become comfortable with revealing themselves, I suppose. Or, you know, whatever reason people have to lurk. Like, I've lurked in many places myself, so it's not like I don't understand lurking. I just, I look forward to meeting more lurkers. Let me see. But thank you for the super chat. Really, really appreciate it. And glad to have you here. Vieran says, where is the code for HTML layout calculation in libweb? Is there already some layout engine running in the browser? Sure, there's a quite large layout engine already, and it's in userland, libraries, libweb, layout. And these are all the classes, and it's the layout engine is, of course, built on the CSS specification. So just like CSS itself, it's centered around formatting contexts and box trees. So we build a box tree by combining the DOM and CSS, and then we create formatting contexts to lay out and position each of the boxes in the box tree, just like the CSS specification describes. But of course, there's a lot of missing stuff, so plenty of work to do on this, all of this here. But that's where you find it in libweb layout. Let's see, German WTB says, when you decided you didn't want to get all fancy with the architecture, i.e. microkernel, interpreter bytecode based, and API design, i.e. straight POSIX, why exactly was that? Why I didn't want to get fancy with the architecture? Because I wanted to make something instead of sit around and think about architecture. If you look at projects that sit around and think about architecture, they tend to not get very far. You need a lot of motivation in order to build something architecture first, rather than just building something pragmatically like we're doing. And I think you also need a lot of resources, a lot of patience. And the way you typically do that is that you pay people. But I can't really, I'm not in a position to pay anybody to work on Serenity at the moment. So that type of workflow I don't think would work super well for us. But also I just personally prefer to build and then design as you go, rather than make a design first and then try to build it. It's how I've learned to program, and the large projects I've worked on in my life have been built this way, so it's sort of what I'm used to. Let's see, Alexander Kirillov says, first time ever interacting. Just wanted to say the Discord series is great. It has its own story arc and everything. Yeah, I guess so. My favorite part of the series is actually whenever I get a chance to talk about something that somebody else discovered about Discord, or some progress that somebody else made. And I definitely want to do more of that, because there are people on our Discord server like Ben and Luke, especially those guys, but also others who have been investigating and hacking on improvements as well. And Andrew and Brian and probably Linus, although I'm not sure exactly what Linus is doing or for what purpose, but he's definitely doing stuff. So, but it's really awesome that more people are sort of chipping in and participating, because that is just that's just wonderful, I think. Not just because it's less work for me, but because that makes it a true community effort, right? And community efforts are sweet. Let's see. James Pulio says, the Discord emoji is called caret, so that's what I say. Yeah, that's a fair point, caret. I always catch myself trying to use caret in non-Discord conversations, like typing it to my mom in an SMS and stuff like that. But it doesn't work. Let's see. Aristot says, in your last video, I saw Discord has 1.5 megabyte of CSS. What do you think about it? Do you think is that bad development? Well, it depends. If it's 1.5 megabytes just for the invite page, I would say that's a little bit silly, perhaps. But if it's the case that it's the same CSS for all of Discord, and they just keep it in one file, and then once you've downloaded it, you got it cached, you never have to download it again, I think that's probably fine. Because the purpose of the site is not to look at the invite page, right? Like, the purpose of the site is to use Discord, I would think. So having everything in one CSS thing seems fine to me. Of course, 1.5 megabytes is heavy, but as you saw in my latest video, if you watched it, there are a lot of techniques we can do to categorize and classify and filter which parts of the CSS we actually execute. In the video I made yesterday, I got the number of rules that we execute down from like 16,000 to 500 or so per element. And then after I finished the recording, I got it down from 500 to like 50 rules per element by adding a couple of more buckets to the rule cache. So we've gone from like 1.5 megabyte of CSS. Doesn't really mean that much. It's more about how specific are the rules, and like how well can you divide the rules into buckets that you can then use to sort of filter how much of it you have to run. Let's see. DevTK says, is there currently a Java implementation, or is there one which is actively worked on? I was wondering how you would go about this. There is no Java implementation ongoing as far as I know, but that's not really something I'm interested in, so I admit I don't keep on top of it. Some people have talked about it in the past. The reason that we don't have a native Java implementation for Serenity is simply that the system doesn't need Java. Like, it's not written in Java, so there's no natural need to build a JVM. And I know that a lot of people want to play Minecraft, but for that purpose, I think it would be better to just port an existing JVM and run Minecraft on that, instead of trying to build a JVM just so we can run Minecraft. But what do I know? Ultimately, it's like reasons, motivations, all those things are up to the person who decides to build something. So those are just the reasons that I'm not interested in Java, because I don't use it. JJ says, do we need a browser name? Well, maybe someday, but not yet. Michael D says, want to echo the sentiment here. The Discord series is great. Really cool to see how you work through the issues you find and how you test small fixes. Intercepting especially is very cool. Yeah, resource intercept is really sweet. I feel like we could turn that into a browser feature in some way, probably. That would be kind of nice. At the moment, of course, I'm just hacking the code, but maybe one day it might make sense to build it out so that you can easily access them and update the list of intercepted resources in the browser itself somehow. Let's see. David Katz says, are there any plans for a package manager for Serenity? I would love to work on something like that if there are. There are no plans for anything in particular in Serenity. We don't have plans, at least no official plans, and I personally don't have any plans. If somebody wants to work on something, they usually just do it. Now, we are a bit different from other operating systems in that we don't install any packages by default, like any third-party software. So we have a ports tree, of course, but all of that is strictly optional. So for that reason, package management is way less important to us than it is on other systems that are literally built out of a patchwork of packages. So it's just not an integral component of the system in any way. Lucas Trevisan says, I watch all your vids, but this is the first time talking here. Well, hello. Nice to meet you. And Desert Fish says, I am a lurker. Timo Savala, another lurker. Well, hello, lurkers. So nice of you to reveal yourselves. Nicolas has been lurking. Very nice. Very nice. So good to finally see you say something. Let's see. Julian says, are you a footgun enthusiast? What is your favorite C++ footgun? I'm not that much of a footgun enthusiast. I like to like write programs. I don't like to obsessively focus on footguns too much. But whenever there's a way to systematically avoid a footgun by coming up with some pattern that just makes it impossible to shoot yourself in the foot, I am interested in that type of stuff. But I know there's this whole almost like community that likes to rant about undefined behavior, for example, and how it's such a footgun and blah blah blah. And I'm not really part of that community. I don't find that rewarding. So I don't think I have a favorite footgun in C++. But I don't know. It's not really something I think about. I mean, they exist, but we try to come up with ways to avoid them. Let's see. DevTK says, you mentioned that you didn't want to focus on architecture from the beginning. Are you comfortable with reworking and rethinking some older parts as time goes on? Of course. We do that all the time. That's part of the work is continuous refactoring and rethinking as we learn more things. And that's the whole reason that it's okay to build crap just so that you can make progress, because you know that you're going to come back and clean up the crap and make it better. As long as you build a good abstraction, it doesn't matter so much if what's inside the abstraction is crap. As long as you can use the abstraction to build other stuff, you can come back and clean up later. And that's how a lot of things on Serenity are made. And there's a lot of crappy abstractions or crappy internals with good abstractions outside. We are continuously improving them, and it's pretty satisfying, I think, personally. But you have to mix it up, you know. And I don't want to encourage people to only add crappy internals with good abstractions and like never clean them up, because it's sort of implied, I guess, that if you build a good abstraction with something crappy inside, then you do have some sort of emotional connection to fixing it up later. Of course, nobody is forced to do anything like that, but it is appreciated, I would say. Oh man, I'm falling so much here. Jean-Luc Picard with the super chat. Thank you, Captain. Saying SerenityOS still keeping the warp core running strong in the year 2370. Indeed. Let's see. That would be funny if we are powering spaceships in the future. And we still have our nice abstractions with crappy internals running in the warp core. Devashish says, you've been around massive libraries. In your experience, which is the more dominant cause of slow API/architecture upgrades among it's very expensive labor-wise and breaks too many third-party consumers? So, well, I think the majority of issues have been breaks too many third-party consumers. Especially when it comes to the web. So I've worked a lot on browsers, and breaking existing web content is very much a no-no. Like, that's not cool, and you don't want to do that. And of course, it happens by accident all the time, but doing it on purpose has to be extremely calculated, right? And you have to get all of the browser vendors to agree that this breaking change to the platform is something we should make, and so on. And it's just really hard to make any kind of breaking change to the web. But when it comes to even when it comes to stuff like Qt, which I also worked on, you don't break Qt clients either. Like, Qt makes ABI compatibility promises that within the same major release series, you're always ABI compatible. So like, if you have something built against Qt 4.0, you can use it with Qt 4.15 or whatever, and it will just work. And again, it was like, don't break third-party consumers. Something being expensive labor-wise, I don't remember many times where that has been the thing preventing something. Even like pure like technical debt cleanup still gets done, even if it's expensive labor-wise. but if it would break third-party consumers, it's much, much harder to justify. Yeah, so in my experience, this one for sure. Refrag says, I want to work on Serenity more nowadays instead of lurking, but I feel like I'm probably not experienced enough in C++ and programming, so I feel like I should just let other people do it. Well, let me tell you what. The thing is that we are a very large project, and I'm sure that you specifically have something that you would care more about than anybody else would in the project. And so even if you are not the most experienced person, you can still find that thing that you care about and make it better. And none of the other people would do that. So there's room for many different experience levels here. We are so wide, and we're a relatively small team if you think about how big the scope of the project is. If this had been a narrow scope project, like if we were making a text editor, we would be stepping on each other's toes all the time. But because the scope is so gigantic, you're not going to step on people's toes most of the time. Like, you can go and work on all kinds of little things. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. You can build up your experience as you go. Just be aware of your skill level and try to push yourself a little bit outside your comfort zone, but don't take on tasks that you are unlikely to be able to handle at all. And then you will improve as you go. Don't have to worry too much about it. Anyways, that's what I think. Astatine says, hi, your videos made interested in joining the project. I'm not a C++ developer, but I will try to fix the browser JavaScript console. I did notice that it's not reporting logs and exceptions. Any tips on it? My tip would be to speak with the people on our Discord server in the browser channel or in the JavaScript channel, because there's recently been some changes to the way exceptions are thrown in the JavaScript engine. So come there and discuss with the people, and you can come up with a nice approach together for how to improve log and exception reporting, stuff like that. Let's see, My Stuff YT says, what is SerenityOS? SerenityOS is a new operating system for desktop computers that I started building in 2018, and then a whole bunch of people decided that they wanted to participate because it's a lot of fun to build a new operating system. You can find us on the web at serenityos.org and admire our very, very beautiful web design, complete with a screenshot of the system itself. This is what SerenityOS is. Biomackie says, would you mind explaining how the browser renders text? Sure, I can explain that. So let's use a little example document. So we will make something that looks like this. Okay. So the way that we render text is there are two phases to it. First, we have to lay out the text, because based on this document that you see here, or actually let's make it this way so that the point is clear. We have to turn this into 3 lines of text, right? Because of the line breaks. So first we do a text layout pass where we lay out all the text. So we have to figure out what are the lines of text. Oops, I'm hitting my microphone here. What are the lines of text and which words are on the lines? So we have what's called a block container representing the div here. And a block container can have any number of line boxes inside of it. So in this case, we have, I think it's a vector of line box, something like that. I don't remember exactly, but we can look it up later. But anyways, within this vector, we will end up having a line box that looks like this. And so we turn it into this data structure, more or less. And then when we're going to paint the text, we painting is a large subject, like how do we paint a web page, but how do we paint text specifically? what we do is when it's time to paint a block container, what we do is we just iterate through all of the line boxes one at a time, starting from the top, and then just paint each of the fragments in it one by one. So each one of these things here can be a fragment, but a fragment can also be multiple words as an optimization. But essentially, we just paint the line boxes top to bottom. And you can see all this if you look in block container paint. This guy right here. This is anything that's like a display block, basically in CSS, will be a block container. And here is the loop that I'm talking about. We iterate across all the line boxes, and for each fragment, we paint the fragment. So we tell the fragment, paint yourself. And then what that does is that it figures out the exact piece of text that we're going to paint and exactly where it should be in paint fragment. And then it will draw it into the paint context, which is something that we pass to all of these paint functions. Now, if you're not familiar with how the browser paints, this is actually a pretty good place to start. But really, like, what you need to know is that we paint the tree recursively from starting from the top, and there are many different passes or phases, and it follows the paint model explained in CSS2, which is latest version right here. Or no. Anyway, there's a painting order thing right here. Section E2 painting order. And if you want to know which order things are painted, then you'll have to read this thing which explains, and we're trying to follow this as best as we can. But I'm sure there are issues and we could probably do better, but that's a place to start. And then we try to use the same names for things in libweb as they're called in CSS. So it should be pretty easy to find your way around. And if you have more specific questions, then we can talk about those, but that's roughly how the browser renders a piece of text inside of a block container. Let's see. Manu says, looking at the browser hacking videos, I'm more amazed at how Firefox works. What are the next important steps to bring the browser to a more usable state? Well, there are many different steps. I think, as we noted in the video I made yesterday, really terrible performance is very annoying, and as much as I like to focus on correctness, if something is obnoxiously slow, you're not going to use it either. So I think making things less obnoxiously slow is important. For example, this morning I did a patch that dramatically improved our TCP performance in the kernel. So we can now download resources way faster than we could before. And I don't know how this is going to go now that I'm streaming at the same time, but basically we had this problem in the kernel that we were dropping a lot of TCP packets while receiving data. Also, this is spinning at 100%. That's not good. We were dropping TCP packets because of insufficient buffer space in the Ethernet driver. So I just increased the buffer space. So now we have the same amount of buffer space as other popular operating systems for the same type of Ethernet card. And the result is that we no longer drop TCP packets, and that allows us to download stuff much faster. Let's try this one more time. Yeah, so that sort of stuff is important to make sure that we're not losing performance to silly mistakes like not having enough buffer space for all the incoming data. But as you see here, like, it takes its sweet time, and now it's just churning through the CPU. And this, I think, is parsing JavaScript and running JavaScript. And we need to make those things faster so that it can come up relatively fast, right? You want it to come up within a couple of seconds, not 10 plus seconds, which is what the situation is now. But then, of course, we also have to improve the rendering so it looks correct. There are a lot of issues with Flexbox on this page. We need to improve that. And then we need to solve there are a lot of unimplemented elements. I think this is a checkbox here, it doesn't work. This is a button element, doesn't work. We need to implement more HTML elements so that you can get a more accurate web experience, I guess. But I don't think there's like one particular thing that needs to be done to make it more usable. It's a lot of different things. But it's easier to talk about what can we do to make this page more usable. Here it's like, well, we need to make buttons work and checkboxes, and we need to make the Flexbox layout work correctly so that this thing is not all the way over here on the right, and the text in the username field shouldn't be black, and little details. Anyway, let's see. Noah says, I guess the only possible use for Java would be for JetBrains stuff when you get to a point where dogfooding is feasible. Well, I would prefer to use our own IDE if possible. I mean, I enjoy using C-Line for sure, but ultimately I want to use Hack Studio once we get to that place. Let's see. Zerkits says, watching you develop SerenityOS has been a big inspiration for learning C++ for me. I'm having issues understanding some concepts of it though. Any good sources to learn it that you could recommend? So I haven't been a noob in C++ in a long time, but I would always recommend Jason Turner's YouTube channel called C++ Weekly. Jason makes these little short videos, 10 minutes or less, about different interesting C++ things. And I think anybody who does C++ would probably enjoy Jason's channel, so definitely recommend that. You can watch one of his videos for 6 minutes and learn something totally new and actually useful. Oh, more lurkers. Well, thank you for revealing yourself. Really appreciate that. Hello, Gabrielle. Gabrielle says, lurker here as well. Really enjoyed your interview with Co-Recursive. It was good to go on that podcast. I liked it too. And I'm really glad that so many people enjoyed the interview. It was a very personal interview. And I think it went okay. The main thing I felt that was missing from that interview was that I didn't have much of a chance to talk about the SerenityOS community because the story that Adam wanted to tell was sort of where SerenityOS came from, not so much what it is today. And I like to always talk about what it is today and what a great community we have around it with all these people who are working on it and just having the time of their life programming. And I felt that was missing a little bit, but other than that, it went well, I think. But I'm glad you enjoyed it. Let's see. Yuval Tasher says, doesn't it get boring answering almost the same questions every stream? Not at all. I don't mind. That's what streaming is about to an extent. I think it's not always the same people, and it's easy to forget that, and you kind of have to actively remember it, but some people show up every week, and of course you hear me answering the same questions over and over, but I think there's a lot of new people every week as well that haven't heard the answers to these questions, and I want to give them the same type of attention and the same respect to them asking the question as I would to anybody asking it on the first ever office hours, because, you know, just because you're coming in now doesn't mean that you should be treated any differently than somebody who came in months ago. And also, I don't mind it. It's kind of fun. I do hope that I don't become like too robotic in my answers. I try not to. Let's see. Static says, hey, as someone who's intrigued in building an operating system, what are the 3 most important things to take into consideration before starting, in your opinion? Step 1, just start. Step 2 and 3, just keep going. I think thinking about how you're going to do something like that is way worse use of your time than just starting and doing something. Because you will learn as you go. You don't need to think ahead for a project like that. If you've never done anything like it, you just jump in the water and figure out how to swim once you are in there. That's my advice. Let's see. Aryan says, what's your thought about Ubuntu putting Firefox as a snap in newer versions? I have absolutely no opinion about that. Let's see. MaxJoker98 says, oh, the Enterprise had so many computer problems. Holograms should never have access to the ship's systems. I bet that was due to some great abstraction with a crap implementation. Yeah, that's true. Like they were always messing things up with those holograms. I haven't watched the Next Generation in many years, but I feel like the holodeck was such a weirdly common plot device on that show. Dumb Guy says, can we do another quick live PR review today? And then this dumb guy didn't link a PR. So I don't know what to do with that. Carudo says, hi Andreas, how do you recommend new contributors go about learning the Serenity C++ style and libraries such as libcore and ACK? I recommend learning by making smaller modifications first. If you are not used to picking up new C++ dialects, the easiest way to do it, I think, is to find little bugs and fix little bugs and just get accustomed to the workflow and the coding style as you go. Oh, wait. I'm almost down to the super chats. But yeah, just do small things and you will learn as you go, for sure. Fernando says, just wanted to say that you're an awesome person. SerenityOS is the most exciting project today. Well, thank you, Fernando. I appreciate that compliment. I also believe that SerenityOS is very exciting. It's certainly the most exciting project to me. And if somebody else feels that way, well, that's just awesome. Salvo says, I'm a computer science student struggling to accept to be studying algorithm optimization on books rather than on real hands-on code. Would you advise a more practical approach to software engineering teaching in university? Yes, I think so. I would definitely advise a more practical approach to learning optimization techniques. But at the same time, I don't have experience with a non-practical, strictly academic approach, so I don't know how well that works in practice, but I know that I managed to learn a lot of things, and I never went to university at all, and I learned everything practically, and it's clearly possible to become decently good at it. So I would advise it just because I know that it works. Let me see. Kenneth with the super chat saying, happy Friday. I got a yak stack of browser and JavaScript videos to watch through the weekend. Well, enjoy the videos. There are certainly a whole bunch of them and they're all a bit long, but if you enjoy it, then I'm happy. Thank you for the super chat. And also Elliot with a super chat saying, thank you, Andreas, for everything that you do. Thank you, Elliot, for that super chat. That's really sweet of you. Man, people are real generous today. I really appreciate all the support. Let's see. Devashish was saying, I've never seen you advertise your own C++ mentorship program except that one time on Twitter. Why is that? It's because I do have mentorship clients, but I can't really handle any more of them. it's already taking up time and energy, so I don't feel like I could add any more people, so that's why I stopped advertising it, just because I don't feel like I would be able to like provide the same level of mentorship to if I had more people. But my mentorship program has been going well, so I'm very proud of my clients, and they seem very happy. Let's see. Federico says, thanks for your work. Very inspirational for me and also of other people involved. Is there a sort of mentor channel for doing issues together with someone? For me, it's difficult digging into kernel. I don't know if there's such a thing, but usually, like, if you have questions, you can ask on Discord, but in order to like get somebody to work together with you on something, that's up to you to find somebody to do that. What I would recommend is learning on your own and becoming relatively autonomous, and then asking questions to the community when you need a little bit of help. But in the long term, it will be much more valuable to you if you learn how to solve problems by yourself rather than relying on having another person present. So I think maybe a mindset shift could be useful there. And RWXTarXD says, hi Andreas, I'm writing a desktop environment for Linux and I don't really know where to start. Hoping to get some pointers from you since you worked on KDE for a while. A desktop environment for Linux. I recommend starting with the desktop component that you really, really want to build, and just start with that. Whether it's a terminal or a file manager or a calculator, whatever it is, start with the thing that you would really like to build. I'm sure you have one component you can think of that would be like that. And then you don't have to build the whole environment at once, right? You can build that one component on your current environment, and then this will just get you started and get you thinking about what kind of things you're going to need. But my advice is always to start on something that you're really excited about, that you're really hype about, just to harness some of that hype that you're feeling. And it's this kind of the same advice I had for the person asking about starting an operating system. Starting any big project is just about starting, I think. Just get going. Don't think too much. Just write some code. Start building something that's kind of crappy, but kind of works, and then take it from there. Let's see. Dumb Guy says, I didn't have a specific PR to review in mind. I just liked the reviews. Yeah. Well, I don't. As I said when I started the stream, I am a bit tired today from making all the videos this week. So I wanted to do a shorter office hours, and I think we're gonna cut it off here at 1 hour because I'm just feeling myself getting a bit hazy. But I really appreciate that everybody came here with all the questions and all of the super chats and all of the hype energy. I really appreciate it. Ecoptic says, I missed some comments above yellow super chat. Yeah, I missed a bunch of comments because I feel myself getting a little too tired to do this, so I have to round it down here and get some rest. But I really appreciate that you all came, and if you end up hacking on Serenity in the weekend, do come to Discord and hang out with us, talk about what you're doing, show us some screenshots and stuff. Let's talk about it. I'm gonna go rest, but thank you all again for coming, and I will see you all next time. Bye.